And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee.
Because all the blessings that we're going to get, which is entailing the kingdom of heaven. Isaiah the 60th chapter, I'm going to start at the 10th verse and read on down. It says, and the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. So the sons of strangers, that's talking about the actual strangers, the other nations, shall build up thy walls. We're going to have them in slavery. So they're going to be building the kingdom of heaven, because we're not building nothing. We're not lifting a hand to move nothing. It says, for in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles. That's talking about the actual Gentiles. We're going to take all of their substance, and that their kings may be brought.
And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee.
For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish, yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. Verse 13. And the glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, the box together to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. So the land of Israel, the land of Jerusalem is going to be made glorious. It's going to be made glorious once again. The kingdom is going to be built up. We had a taste of that during the time of Solomon's reign, which was for about 40 years. Verse 14. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and they that despise thee shall bow themselves at the sole of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord. The word Zion means monument, the monument of the Holy One of Israel. Whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that through thee I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shalt suck the breasts of kings, meaning we're going to take all their substance. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord thy power, the Lord and thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring thee gold, and for iron I will bring thee silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. And I will make thy officers peace, and thine exactors righteousness. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders, but thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun shall no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee, but the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and the power thy glory. The sun shall no more go down, meaning our kingdom is not going to go down. In other words, once we get back in power, we're going to be in power forever. The sun is never going to go down on our kingdom again. The sun is never going to set on our kingdom. We're going to always kingdom of heaven. So going back into slavery under the other nations. Esau's not going to rise back up and put us in captivity. Ham, Japheth, Ishmael, none of the other nations are going to rise up and take us down ever again. When we get on top this time, we're going to remain on top. Neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. So no more mourning, no more crying, no more vexation of spirit, no more weeping, no more hopelessness because of the condition that we're in as Israelites right now. Verse 21, thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever. The branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. Verse 22, a little one shall become 1,000. This is in the kingdom. So what is this talking about? We're going to have sex. Again, like I said, The 2/3 that are going to pass in this destruction, the 2/3 are going to come back through the 1/3 that make it. The Lord said, the 2/3 shall be cut off and die, and the third will I bring through the fire. It says, a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah Bahasham, Makakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right, going into this morning news and prophecy. All right, as we're in the birth pains, okay, of prophecy, man. All right, things are starting to intensify. Okay, things are escalating, as far as, war, as far as the economy, as far as civil unrest. Okay, all these things are beginning, to escalate. All right, and what we know, according to the scriptures, all right, that we're coming into a time like never before, and the recipe, all right, the Lord has all the ingredients, all right, or the recipe for disaster stirring in the pot. Okay, and we're going to go into some things, man. Some things I found interesting. Lord will is informative, to you brothers, all right, you few sisters, man. But we're some beautiful times, man. And the Lord, the timing of it as we coming into, all right, as we've went through the Pesach, okay, which is symbolic of us being delivered and our enemies being defeated, and we're living in it, man. We're living in the build up to the second Exodus, man. Okay, if a brother want to post that real quick, we can start with that, before I go into Luke. But was it Jeremiah 16, 14 and 15, Bible Shah? If a brother want to post that, because we're in the build up to that second Exodus, man, where the Lord is getting ready to deliver his people with great power. You see, the stage is set for the Heavenly Father to show great power in the earth through judgment and through mercy, man. Okay, he's going to deliver us with great power. He's going to judge the earth with great power. Okay, and we're alive to see the Lord begin to do these things real time. Okay, because going back to February of 28, when these devils kicked this war off, okay, which is the beginning of World War, okay, and there's going to be more players that's going to be activated, all right, and join this war, and it's just going to continue to escalate, man. But while that's happening, we have other prophecies that's going to be coming to pass. While this war is escalating and expanding, there's going to be more prophecies that's going to keep coming to pass, all right, and it's going to eventually, the MOTB is going to be made mandatory, man. Okay, so this let's go here. Yep, it's the brother Song for Thought 144. Shalom to you, Akim. On the comment board. All right, helping with the screen. This is Jeremiah 16 and 14. It said, therefore, behold, the days come, said the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Okay, as we know, as we hold the Pesach, all right, we hold it in the reverence of the deliverance of ancient Israel, of ancient Egypt. The Lord delivering his people, the true Israelites, out of ancient Egypt. you know, and the Lord has us reverencing that in New Egypt, okay, which is America, man. All right. But the Lord has promised that He's going to do that again, all right, with much more glory, with much more power. Okay. Jeremiah 16 and 15. Okay. And it says, but the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, which is here in America, man. Okay. And from all the lands whither He have driven them, and I will bring them again into that land that I gave unto their fathers, man. So the Lord is preparing to take His people home, man. The elect of Israel is getting ready to go home. Okay. And our enemies are going to be conquered and destroyed. Okay. So we're in the build up to that, man. So we follow prophecy. And this is why we follow prophecy, man, because this is what it's leading to, man. We understand the end game. Okay. The end game of our captivity and the beginning of our rulership, man, in righteousness, man. Lord will, we're joint heirs with Yahweh. Okay. So let's go from there. Let's start here in Luke. All right. Then I got quite a few videos, so we'll tap in. But let's go here to the book of Luke, chapter 21. Okay, and I got it in the AMP. Okay. I'm gonna start at verse 9. Luke 21 and 9, it says, when you hear of wars and disturbances, okay, and that's what we're seeing in this war is causing a disruption. And we know that the elites, you know, they manipulate, okay, every war, okay, to forward their agenda. Okay. They done it with World War One and World War Two, but World War Three, okay, is gonna be a major backfire, okay, for the elites, man. Okay. And the Most High got them on the timer to where they gotta come on with it. All right. But what we're seeing is when you hear wars and disturbances, okay, civil unrest, revolts, uprisings, and this is all we're seeing. Like I say, those GCC states, you already have two kings, the king of Bahrain, okay, and I believe the king of Kuwait, okay, they've already been ran off, man. This is civil unrest, okay. Over here in America, you have the No Kings protest, and see these unrest gonna go into revolts, man. With these people, especially, you know, when this energy crisis, okay, is pushed harder, man. When things, you know, when you have inflation, hyperinflation, okay, these things are only going to increase, man. You know, and right now we're in the calm before the storm, okay, because things haven't taken full effect yet, man. But we're going to see an uptick on civil unrest, revolts, and uprisings. It says, do not panic, for these things must take place first, but the end will not come immediately. So these things must take place first, man. Okay, before this war goes nuclear, well, there's events that have to happen, man. Civil unrest has to, you know, be global, and it's gonna be the worst here in America, man. Okay, in a society where there's more guns than people, and you have a people where they only care about themselves, man. That's a recipe, okay, for the worst time ever. The scriptures speak about. Okay, it says, verse 10, it says, then Yahushua told them, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And this is what we're seeing, man, because now these nations are being forced to pick a side. Okay, because what's happening affects them all. They can't afford to sit back. The Lord got these nations in position, and you're going to fight or starve. Okay, because as this thing plays out, it's going to become more dire. Okay, things are going to become more dire. Okay, and it says, then Yahushua told them, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. It said there will be violent earthquakes and in various places famines and deadly and devastating pestilence. Okay, because there's gonna be some things. This devil, I believe, the devil gonna really unleash certain diseases. You know, famine bring about diseases. We went into that. You know, hey, the Lord, he can really turn some. He can. Hey, it don't have to be the CDC releasing something. Hey, the Lord can. All right, release something, man. Okay, So we're finna see these things take place, man. We say we just in the beginning. So I said this is the beginning of sorrows, man. Okay, things haven't hit yet, man. Okay, they just seen the first domino. Okay, which was this devil kicking off this war. That's the first domino, man. So it's more dominoes to fall. Okay, and the last domino, all right, leads to Yahweh Shai, the return of Yahweh Shai, man, which is the MOTB being mandatory. Okay, which is going to lead to the nukes in Yahweh Shai. It says, and there will be terrible sights and great signs, all right, from heaven, which we just had the pink moon, the night of the Passover, which it was a pink moon. Okay, these are signs in the times, man. Okay, these are signs in the heavens, man. So everything is lining up exactly how Yahweh Shai said they would. Okay, we're seeing these things. We're seeing the buildup of everything Yahweh Shai is speaking about as he's running it down about the atmosphere that will lead to his second coming, man. And the atmosphere is set. The stage is set. Okay, now it's just waiting. And now it's just having patience as these things escalate. But the stage is set. Okay, and it says, but before all these things, okay, well, I'm gonna jump down. Well, I'm gonna read. Yep, I'm gonna read through Luke 21 and 12. It said, but before all these things, they will lay hands on you and will persecute you, because we know this devil, he still has to go with his move, all right, against the prophets. So that has to be done as well, the persecution of the prophets. Okay, because the biggest threat to this man's kingdom is this doctrine, this word. Okay, because this word, all right, is being fulfilled. Okay, and in his mind, if he cuts off the word, he can win. If he's able to, in Esau's mind, if he's able to cut off the word, then he can move forward with his new world order. Okay, that's why scriptures speak about the famine of the word. Okay, because this devil, remember, he's desperate. You see, and this devil, he's doing what the prophets are telling me he's going to do, and ultimately it's the Lord telling him what he's going to do through the prophets, man. Okay, so they are already telegraphing, all right, some type of false flag, some type of cyber attack, and you best believe, man, they're going to link us, okay, to some type of event. You see, that make us, enemies of the state overnight. Okay, a national threat overnight, man. It's some event this nigga gonna do, because he gotta do something. Okay, Esau can't do nothing. He gotta do something, man. Okay, so it says, but before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and will persecute you, turning you over to the synagogue and prisons and bringing you before kings and governors for my name's sake. All right, so this is going to happen. Now, let's read down. So we're going to be brought. There's going to be certain brothers going to be brought before, whether it's, Congress, whether it's before these technocrats, man. We don't know, but we know we're going to be brought before, all right, these high-ranking Edomites, man, for a testimony. Okay, Yahweh Shai. It's going to be certain brothers, that stay locked. Certain brothers going to be on the move. Certain brothers going to be ducked off, man. Everybody, Jacob trouble going to look different, but Lord will, we endure, and we all meet back up on the chariots, man. But it's going to come a time where the internet going to be cut off. That's why now is the time to be tapped in, to be locked in. We need this word in us, man. Okay? Every day is a chance to add a little more faith, add a little more trust in Yahweh by Shema Shai, through this word going now, understanding what's going on. Okay? And it says, this will be a time and an opportunity for you to testify about me. So make up your minds not to prepare beforehand to defend yourselves, For I will give you skillful words and wisdom, which none of your opponents will be able to resist or refute, man. So Yahweh Shai, he's going to give, if that's our lot, we get snatched up in the midst of everything that's going on. Well, the Lord's going to give us a spirit to confound, all right, these devils, man. Okay? We don't even have to think or meditate, all right, or try to have some, prepared to say. No, the Lord say He gonna give us a mouth of speaking in time if we're in that lot, man. You see, and it says, but you will be betrayed and handed over even by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death, and that's a part of it as well. Martyrs, man. Okay, you're gonna have believers you're gonna have those of the church. Okay, the body of Yahushua. Okay, there's gonna be martyrs, man. Okay, but we understand that death is not the end of the story. Okay, for the elect, man. Okay, death is nothing but a quick rest. All right, those that die in your house are gonna be right back, man. Okay, but there's a part of it, you see, and that's a cost we have to count. Okay, and it says, and you will be continually hated by everyone because of your association with my name. Because this devil, he's gonna demonize the name of Yahweh, man. Like I say, he's gonna link us to something, and he's gonna keep pushing propaganda. He's gonna keep doing little things, man. It has to happen. All right. But the scriptures, Yahweh said, rejoice when they count your name for evil, for his sake. Okay. So for the sake of Yahweh, man, and we're accounting for evil, man, that's the Lord saying, rejoice, because great is your reward in heaven. Okay. It says, let's go here. It says, but not a hair on your head will perish. It says, by your patience, endurance, and power by the Holy Spirit, you will gain your souls. Okay, so you're gonna have those that are going to be, beheaded for the testimony of Yahweh, and you have those that's not a head on their head going to perish, man. Either way, it's a win for the elect. Okay, they're different ends of the spectrum, but it's a win for the elect. You're gonna win. You're gonna win, and those that our martyrs are going to be on the chariots first, man. Okay. Now jumping down real quick. All right, verse 25, it says there will be signs of testing miracles in the sun and the moon and stars. All right, and on the earth there will be distress and anguish amongst nations, and perplexity and roaring and tossing of the sea and in the waves, man. Okay. So we're getting ready to see anguish in the earth, man. All right, it's gonna be a real press, man. When these devils, when this energy and this food, okay, really hit, this energy and this food crisis really hit. Okay, when these devils really, start turning off the pumps. Okay, because it's gonna go from prices rising to no, they nigga turn the pumps off. Okay, when you have the movement of goods come to a complete halt. Okay, we're coming into a time of distress and anguish, man. All right, it says in perplexity and ruin. All right, and perplexity is when someone is perplexed, man. That means they don't know, they don't have any idea what to do next. They're just completely confounded and overwhelmed, and that's going to be the majority of the earth, man, especially here in America. All right, and it says, people fainting for fear of expectation and of dreadful things coming on the world, for the very powers of heavens will be shaken. Then it says, then they will see the Son of Man coming in the cloud and the chariot, all right, transcendent, overwhelming power, subduing the nations, and with great glory, man. Yeah, Yahweh Shah coming to conquer in righteousness, man. Because all this is a build up to Yahweh Shah, man. Everything that we're going through, man. We're going through these birth pains, these moves that's being made in this war. Okay, we're going to the AI, all the things that this devil has going on. It's leading to Yahweh Shah, man. Okay, verse 28, it says, now when you see these things begin to occur, Stand tall and lift up your heads and joy, because suffering ends as your redemption is drawing nigh. Okay, and our redemption is drawing nigh. Okay, and the end of the suffering of the elect. Okay, because we're going to be changed, man. Okay, we're getting ready to be with Yahweh Shai forever, man. Okay, we're getting ready to go back home, man. Esau and these nations, they're getting ready to be subdued. You see, because as these nations are fighting and jousting for position in this new world order, okay, they're all finna lose, man. All of them are finna lose, man. Okay, and all of them are going to end up in captivity, man. Okay, these nations have followed Esau into captivity. Okay, as Esau has promised this utopia and technocracy, and you know, he's promised, these different oligarchs of these other nations. He done painted this picture of them being gods and people going them, and no, nigga, all y'all going to captivity, man. Okay, all you heathens, you oligarchs, you elites of all you nations are going into captivity with the people you thought you was finna enslave, man. All right, it's the poetic justice for your ass, man. Okay, and you don't follow Esau into this mighty trap. All right, so let's go here. I want to get this video first. Now, this video breaks it down, and we're gonna go into dealing with this whole oil, and just go into how things work a little bit, man. It's good to have a base understanding how particular thing work. Okay, so when we hear things, it's like, oh, this nigga, because you can pick up a lie immediately when you understand how things work. Because we're in a time where people are just saying different things, don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's a lot of disinformation, a lot of misinformation, a lot of people that don't know what the hell they're talking about, trying to be deep and be expert. Nigga, you don't know. Okay, so let's go into these things. He made some good points in this video. All right, and let me see. Yeah, we'll follow up with this video with a little more information, all right, on how things flow as far as this energy. So let's play this.
The Iran war was supposed to blow up the world economy.
The war in Iran has sent the price of oil and natural gas soaring, putting pressure on just about everyone.
Ship traffic has slowed to just a dribble, and the longer it stays disrupted, the more pressure builds across the entire global energy system.
But it's been a month of really severe fighting and a near total shutoff of oil and gas out of the Middle East, and most of the world seems basically fine. Like, you look at your window and what you see is not Mad Max. What you see is more a normal variety bad economy.
Attacking at least 3 ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And that translates to prices at the gas pump, now at levels not seen since the start of the war in Ukraine 4 years ago.
So what's going on here? Was the doomsaying all wrong? Are things basically fine? And to figure this out, we're going to answer the question, what actually happens when the world's largest oil-producing region goes to zero? Like, physically, step by step, from the moment the tap turns off, how does that work? How does that ripple down the supply chain to your gas pump, to your grocery store? How long do the lights stay on? How long do planes stay in the air? And look, I will spoil the ending for you. The fine that you see out your window right now is fake. It's a mirage. I don't care where in the world you are, there is a 100-foot tidal wave rising above your head. And once you see why it's rising and what's going to happen when it hits, you will not be able to miss it. The thing we are talking about has a name, an oil shock. And we are right now in the biggest oil shock in history. Think of it like a bomb that's exploded very far away. We see the flash, but the shock wave hasn't reached us yet. Today, we're going to answer what happens when that shock wave hits, what it's going to do, what will change, how it's going to play out, which also means asking why it's taking so long to reach us, where we're in this weird lull right now. As promised, though, we're going to start by tracing what actually happens when the oil spigot goes from on to off. And the first thing you need to know is something that seems simple, seems obvious, but it turns out to be really, really important. This is an oil tanker. And the thing to know about an oil tanker is that it's really, really big. 4 soccer fields long, carries 2 or 3 million barrels of oil, and it weighs more than a skyscraper, all of which makes it slow, 10 or 15 knots. That is, no joke, the speed of a bicycle. Our global energy supply lines move at the speed of a Schwinn. And let me show you on this globe why that's important. If you biked all day, how much of this globe do you think you could cross? Like maybe the width of the point of this pen, right? Maybe. You worked really hard. Okay. Now imagine hopping on your 12 speed starting in Dubai. Where's Dubai? Here we go. Starting in Dubai. And now imagine that you have to bike out of Dubai all the way down here, down the coast of Africa, down, across the Cape of Good Hope, back up the other coast of Africa, all the way across the Atlantic, through the Caribbean, before finally arriving at the deepwater oil port in Louisiana. That would take forever on a bike, right? Which, remember, is the speed that these oil tankers go. Like, that is how our oil travels, as if it were on a bike. And maybe you see where I'm going with this. This is a map of global oil flows put together by JP Morgan. Don't worry about all this text. We'll explain it in a minute. These red lines show the oil coming out of the Middle East, going out to the rest of the world. This is the stuff that's been cut off. Here it is back in December before the war. There it goes. The oil is flowing. But remember, it moves at the speed of a bunch of bicycles. So now it's January, and the oil is just finally reaching parts of Asia and Europe. And we're into February before it hits the US, and then it hits refineries in South Korea that then sends it on down these pink lines to Australia and New Zealand. So when the war starts and the oil stops flowing, there's actually still a ton out there, taking its long, lazy little bike ride around the globe. That's a big part of why things seem weirdly normal. For most countries, the oil shutdown has not reached us yet. We're still getting shipments that were sent out before the war started. So when did those shipments stop? If you look at that map again, it says most deliveries to the US will stop around April 15th. In Europe, they stop around April 10th. Asia, April 1st, so it's just getting started. But here in parts of Africa, it was March 20th. We're already well into it. And to be clear, these places aren't out of oil. Every country has emergency stockpiles. So let's see what that looks like. Gas lines are the first thing to show up. Not enough fuel at the pump. And these are already everywhere. South Africa, Pakistan, Vietnam, a bunch of places. In Laos, they ordered schools closed for 1 day a week so there'd be fewer people on the roads. The Philippines and Ethiopia did the same thing for government offices. And Sri Lanka is making everybody take every Wednesday off of work now. There are also restaurant curfews, mass flight cancellations, air conditioning shutoffs. It's not that these countries are running out of oil. I mean, they are, but that's not the real issue exactly. Imagine this is the global oil supply. It's all sold in one big market. And that means all the producers sell to that same global supply. And then all the oil consuming countries buy from that same supply. You could also call these exporters and importers. It's the same idea. Anyway, the Iran war cut off 1/5 of global supply, about this much. So when deliveries stop showing up at those countries we talked about, they can actually buy from other producers, but they've got to do it by outbidding whoever would have bought that oil otherwise. And that pushes up the price for everyone. And that's even hitting places like the US, where we are still receiving oil from before the war started. Countries whose shipments ran out are creating this big surge in demand. So anytime you go to the pump or pay your power bill, you are bidding against them and they are bidding against you. And all of this is going to get significantly worse when China and Europe start running out of shipments too and surge demand to replace it, which is really close to happening. But all of this raises a question. If these shortages are just days or weeks from reaching everywhere, then why are we on a lull? Every government in the world can see that same map that I showed you earlier. They know catastrophe is bicycling their way. So
again, they want people to be off guard. You know, at the same time, you know, they're telling people they're flashing this energy crisis, but then at the same time, they want people to sleep, man. They want people to be least prepared as possible, you know, the elites. Okay. And these things are working this way because it's a global ripple effect that's going to happen. You know, as they stop moving this oil And you got different nations that are consumers and different nations that are exports. And then you have to factor in how much oil consumption do these nations use a day. Okay, because we talk about reserves and once we really get to understanding how this thing works, man, Esau has a very fragile system in place that he uses to run the earth. Okay, and he knows that a disruption like this is going to cause a global catastrophe, man. This is what this devil wants because he wants to do a reset, man. Okay, Esau, these elites, they need a global catastrophe to cause a global reset. Okay, so like he's saying, these oil shipments, all right, that there's oil that was en route before the war. They haven't made it yet, man. And when these nations start getting their last shipments, and as we're seeing, different parts of the world are already shutting down and having to make modifications and put do different things to try to reserve and preserve oil. Okay, preserve gas. Okay, grounding flights. All right, so we're going to see these crises hit in other places, before it touches America. We'll be on the lookout and see how these things really start to affect, man. So by May, going into where he's going, man, you can see some major change as far as lockdowns and restrictions and shortages and outages. Okay. And we know this devil, he's going to push this narrative. He's going to exaggerate things. He's going to manufacture certain crises, all right, to speed this thing up. Okay. And we also have to factor in this devil wants to preserve this oil and this gas to power his new world order. We're going to show you that, they're running into shortages trying to push this new world order as well, man. I got another video of Baratazar. All right. Let's play this and then let me go ahead and put this in the description box as well.
Why doesn't it feel like it? This is Trump a couple of weeks into the war.
Sir, could you foresee a deal in Iran this upcoming week?
I do see a deal in Iran.
Mr. President,
Could be soon.
When he said this, the price of oil dropped right away. War's ending, right? Everything back to normal? Except he'd been saying the same thing for weeks.
We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of agreement.
Iran has said that there are no talks, and Trump is making it all up.
Iran's foreign ministry says you're not telling the truth when it comes to productive conversations to end the war.
Well, they're going to have to get themselves better public relations people.
He's been doing a ton of this. Like a few days earlier, he posted the U.S. was very close to meeting its objectives in the war and might soon start winding down. So why does he keep doing this? Well, to understand, go back to that graphic of the global oil market. We left something out before. A lot of oil gets bought up by speculators who sell it secondhand. This all takes place through something called an oil future. It sounds scummy, but it actually serves a pretty useful function in stabilizing prices. It doesn't matter how it works. The point is, those speculators set their price by what they think oil will cost in the future. Which means if Trump comes along and says, peace in our time, speculators conclude prices will drop and sell their oil futures for cheap, which helps to balance the price rise in the regular market. That's part of the lull. Even though Econ 101 says oil prices should be going up way more than they have, like crisis level $6, $7 a gallon territory, all of this market manipulation is tamping those prices down. But that sounds good, right? Except that it means that the global economy is consuming oil and gas as if they were still priced and flowing normally. It's like if your city were running out of water and everybody in town decided to take 2 showers a day. And there's another thing propping up this weird artificial lull that we're in.
IEA countries have unanimously,
and the least want to drive this thing to the ground, and dealing with Trump, you have the aspect dealing with Trump when he make these speeches to keep, the markets low, the oil market is low, the price is low, okay, lower than they should be. All right, because he got most of those speculators are his Edomite cronies that buy up all the oil at low prices because they know they're gonna ride it up. Okay, when oil goes up, they're gonna ride. All right, they're gonna ride that market up with the oil. So you got that little game that they playing, and also too, remember Trump is an actor, man. Trump main thing is to distract the masses. Okay, that's why Trump just says anything and everything and don't know, especially when it comes to the war. He's more so of a distraction. Okay, while America is being tanked. Okay, Trump's job is to tank America. Okay, economically. You see, that's what Trump was tasked to do by the elites, was to tank America, man. Okay, economically, for a global reset. All right. So this nigga just up here saying things and doing things as a form of a distraction while this place is being tanked. Okay, and it's gonna hit, and when it hit, man, it's gonna hit hard, man. Right now, all right, things, it's like you're driving in a car going 80 and you start to hit the brakes. Okay, start to slow down and lose momentum. Well, eventually, man, this place is just going to crash into a wall. Okay, you see, because there's no way to slow down enough, all right, to prevent what's finna happen. Okay, this place is going to hit a wall, man, and it's going to go into immediate shock and crisis, man. Okay, let's play a little bit more of this.
They decided to launch the largest ever release of emergency oil stocks in our agency's history.
Remember earlier when I said that all countries keep oil stockpiles? Well, a bunch of those countries got together recently and agreed to sell off 400 million barrels from their reserves. That's like if 200 of those oil super tankers suddenly materialized out of the Bermuda Triangle all at once. And then on top of that, the US also agreed to allow Russia, and this is kind of hard to believe, Iran, to sell off some of their sanctioned oil. Releasing these stockpiles has added oil to the market equivalent to about half of what was cut off by the war, which has helped to balance out supply and prices and all of that. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The stockpile release and those speculator games, these are both one-off tricks. They only work for a few weeks, and when they're used up, they're gone, man. That artificial lull that we have been holding up, it is going to come crashing to an end just as those last shipments of Middle Eastern oil dry up.
The final vessel carrying jet fuel into the United Kingdom is going to get here in 48 hours, and there's no more after that.
So when that oil shock hits, it is going to hit us all at once. Okay, so now we understand what that oil shock is, how it's going to get here, how it's forming. What is it going to look like? And when people picture this, they tend to talk about it in terms of rising prices. $200 barrel oil, $8 a gallon at the pump, $1,000 domestic flights. But this misses something much larger and much more consequential that is already starting to happen. To understand what that is, imagine if instead of talking about energy supplies, we were talking about food. And if I told you that 1 or 2% of the world's food supply was going offline, you'd probably worry. You might expect to see food prices go up some hardships on the margin, but you would think it's basically survivable. But now if I told you the world had already lost 20% of its food supply, you would think, well, we're about to have fewer people on Earth. And the name for this is demand destruction. It's when the supply of something drops so severely that whoever or whatever relies on it, the demand, permanently withers away. And that is what is going to happen to any global economic activity that uses energy, which is like almost all of it. Factories, technological development and production, car and airplane travel, air conditioning, building homes or cities. I'm not saying that those things are going to go away, but there is going to be a lot less of them, like about 20% less once things really bottom out.
The economic shocks caused by this war will be with us for months.
How we emerge from this crisis will define us for a generation.
Let me give you a few specifics that are already starting to mount their flights, so it'll be harder to explore the world. European governments are telling their citizens not to travel for vacation this summer. There's just not enough fuel for it. A number of factories are already closing worldwide, especially in Asia. Semiconductor factories in particular are closing, both for lack of power and because semiconductors use helium, which is a byproduct of natural gas production, so is also going away. Importers expect it to become prohibitively expensive to ship some things abroad, so we'll have fewer foreign goods, less off-season produce, and we'll export less too, so fewer jobs. Construction supplies like lumber are getting too expensive to harvest or import, which means fewer homes getting built, which means existing homes getting more expensive and harder to afford. Many of the essential components to fertilizer also come through the Persian Gulf, things like phosphorus. There are already fertilizer shortages in Asia, so yeah, there will also be less food in the world. All of these things also contribute to inflation. Prices go up, harder to afford things, our standard of living goes down. And the thing is, even if the war ends today, this process, this demand destruction, is actually going to continue. It's because American, Israeli, and Iranian missiles have left much of the region's energy infrastructure in ruins. Things like refineries, gas terminals that will take years to rebuild, which means years before that oil and gas comes back online. This winter is probably going to bring the first big wave of hardship. Right now, spring and summer is a time of year when countries are usually stockpiling oil and gas so that they can get their people through the cold months. But instead, those countries are burning their stockpiles down to zero. That means December and January are likely to bring a whole new oil shock when a billion people across Europe, Asia, and North America go to turn on their winter stoves or heaters and find that there is not enough gas to go around. Now look, I'm not saying all this because I want to scare you, and we are not on the verge of some great collapse. I promise you that Mad Max is going to remain a thing that you watch just on your TV.
And that's where he's wrong. All right, because everyone wants to be optimistic, okay, about the times that's coming up. No, it's going to be worse than Mad Max. Okay, things are going to continue to escalate and just get worse, man. You know, the Lord is wrapping this thing up, man. The Lord ain't got forever to play with Esau, man. He's going to wrap this nigga up, man. It's going to be worse than Mad Max. Okay, so when these oil shocks finally hit, okay, because people talk about all these oil reserves, 400 million barrels and this and that. Well, when we see how much the earth consumes, okay, oil, especially here in America, and it's like, well, damn, okay, this is a fragile system, okay, and the disruption to the system, okay, and these devils, and see, it's going to be a thing, or these devils just going to have to cut things. The devils are going to cut things off to preserve oil for them, okay, in this infrastructure, man. All right, the digital infrastructure, which requires a lot of energy, man. Okay, so let's sit on that. Let's go from there. As I put that video in the link. So I just want to go through some things I was looking at. All right, so first, when you go into the energy consumption, okay, now let's look at what countries consume the most oil. Okay. Well, matter of fact, let's go here. Let's go here first. Now, I asked, how much oil does America produce per day? It said the United States produces a record high average of approximately 13.4 to 13.6 million barrels of crude oil per day. Okay, which that's the highest in the world. All right. And it says, as of late 24 to 2025, maintaining its position of the world's top oil producer when including other liquid fuels like natural gas, okay, like natural gas, plant liquids, and biofuels. Total U.S. petroleum production exceeds 21 to 22 million barrels a day. Okay, so you have between natural gas and oil, America is producing 21 to 22 million barrels a day. Okay, now when you go into that sounds good. All right, but when you go into, which we'll come back here, and we'll come back to that. But let's go here. So like, damn, America produce all this oil. It's the number one, oil producer in the world. But then you go here. Okay. Remember, it produces 21 to 22 million. But how much oil does America consume a day? All right. And you have this chart with different nations. Y'all let me know if y'all can see this chart. Okay. It shows the nations that consume the most oil. Let me know if y'all can see this chart clear. All right. But yeah, you go here, and who's the number one consumer of oil? Okay, who's the number one consumer? America, 19 million barrels per day. Remember, American reserves are 400 million barrels. Okay, so you're talking about a month's worth of oil compared to the consumption. Okay, so here it is. America produces 21 to 22 million. Okay, and that's including, all right, uh, the natural gas, which America, they export the natural gas. Okay, and they subsidize. Well, they they import most of his oil from Canada. Okay, to cover their daily consumption. So America produces 13 to 14 overhead is $80,000. Okay, so they're living check to check, even though it sounds good on paper. You make $1 million a year, but ultimately they're living check to check. So American energy is basically check to check because it's high, and that's why America, all right, wants. That's why America is all about the control of the global oil market. Like this thing with Iran, they wanted full control of the global oil market. Okay, because they use so much. America uses so much oil. It's the number one oil consumer in the world. Okay, China, which is way bigger and has way more people, is the second. Okay, 16.4. India is third, 5.6. But you go to countries like Iran and Russia, which are major oil producers, you know, Russia only using 3.8. Iran is using 2 million barrels a day. Okay, so America is sucking up all the energy of the earth, man. That's why these niggas be everywhere stealing as much oil as they can, because these niggas suck up all the energy of the earth, man. Okay, you see, and I'll leave this link too. You know, brothers want to tap into that. Let me put this up here. All right. That's why okay, trying to lock down everybody else oil, man. Okay, so the link for their chart. Well, let's go back here real quick to show you, all right, that America, you know, it imports just enough of what it needs for daily consumption, man. Okay, because they export their natural gas, all right, but they consume all the oil that they produce, plus they need oil from Canada to stay afloat. Okay, so when you go here, remember they use 19, let's say 20 million, okay, barrels a day. All right, they produce 13 and a half. Okay, so what do they cover? All right, the difference, it says imports. It says the U.S. imports roughly 6 to 7 million. Okay, so you add that 7 million to their 13 and a half, they put them over 20, which is their daily consumption. So the U.S. imports roughly 6-7 million barrels of crude oil per day, mostly from Canada. Okay, so Canada keeps them afloat with their daily consumption, and then they're able to export and make money off their natural gas. Okay. So that's how America, energy is flowing. You see, if that makes sense, you know. So when we hear about all these millions of barrels and this millions of barrels, remember, they're using 20 million a day. Okay. Remember, 20 million barrels come out of the Strait of Hormuz a day. America used that in one day. All the oil that comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, America uses that in a day. You see, we holler because you think about these reserves, and you like, man, they got plenty of oil, man. They use a lot. America use a lot of goddamn energy, and America plans on building what? A lot more data centers, man. Okay, and this is why these devils, they had to go to Venezuela. You know, they had plans in Iran. They wanted them Iranian reserves, man. Okay, America really wanted them Iranian reserves, man. Okay, because they got a lot that they plan on doing, man. They know that it's going to take a lot of energy to run this system, man, this digital system. Okay, and let's go here. Let's go to this video here. Where we at? Okay, let's play this.
To modern standards. What is because America's not going to go in and build up Venezuela's oil infrastructure. That'll cost tens of billions of dollars. It'll take many years before America can really bring the Venezuela oil industry up to modern standards. What it's doing is cutting off access to China. That's entire goal, right? So it's not to claim the oil and it's not to benefit U.S. oil companies. It's just to spite China. That's all it is.
Well, no, I agree. I think.
So what America did with Venezuela, they cut China off, from Venezuelan oil. Okay, because what we're seeing in these nations, all right, they beginning to fight their way into this new world order. And see, resources are limited. See, now it's about resources. As you have a change, okay, of they're going from this old world to a new world. Okay, these nations want to posture themselves with strength, and resources is a major part of AI. Okay, it takes a lot to run AI. It takes a lot of raw material to run this AI, man. Okay, to run a surveillance state, it takes a lot, okay, of resources and raw materials, man. Okay, so what we're seeing is these nations are beginning to do resource grabs, man. Okay, because the America, their Venezuelan oil, it will benefit in the long run, but right now it was about cutting off China, Russia, and Iran. Okay, and then the West, like, okay, we cut these niggas off from resources in the Western Hemisphere. Now we finna go to the Eastern Hemisphere and take resources. That was they thinking with Iran. Okay, we cut them off in Venezuela. Now we finna make a power move and go take Iran oil. Okay, but it backfired. All right, and now we in a position to where these devils just gonna have to come on with their move, man. Okay, so let's play this.
Well, this is the main issue of this is what they keep referring to the Monroe Doctrine. Obviously, China is the main concern there because you want to control your own hemisphere. Seeing China as being the main trade partner to all of Latin America is something that has to be reversed. But how do you factor in though the unknown variables? For example, if I would predict one thing for 2026, it would be an economic crisis. That is for the United States. And again, once economic crisis kicks in, you have it manifests itself in political, social instability. The rationality of states tend to wither away when things at home go poorly, and they will seek quick fixes and easy solutions, and like these tariff policies, or allow economic conflicts to elevate into war. So how do you see economic crisis playing into 2026, especially the U.S.-China rivalry?
Right. So the American economy has some major weaknesses. And you're right that it's possible that America faces a great financial crisis this year. So let's go over some of the major problem areas of the American economy. The first is artificial intelligence, where right now most American GDP is driven by investment in AI. So just building data centers, which consume a lot of water and electricity in local communities. And what's a problem is that these data centers cost tens of billions of dollars. And it's really unclear how these data centers will make money, because right now, how most people use AI is to generate videos and to like cheat in school, right? To get ChatGPT to write their essays. It's unclear how this will be beneficial to the economy. And if it's possible for AI to be profitable, this will cause millions of jobs to be lost. So it seems as though the AI bubble is about to burst. The problem, though, is that right now the U.S. economy doesn't make any sense, right? So there's Michael Burry, who is very famous for predicting that in 2008 the subprime market, the CDO market, would collapse, and he took out billions of dollars. And then he made a bet against AI because he was certain that none of the fundamentals made any sense in the AI industry. And then he suddenly announced that he was actually leaving the industry. And the reason why is, okay, the AI industry doesn't make any sense, but guess what? The entire American financial industry doesn't make any more sense anymore. Meaning that right now, the American financial industry, it's controlled by a few oligarchs. It's controlled by a minority of people who can dictate the market to their will. And so the average...
And these oligarchs are the elites. Okay? And all they do is manipulate these markets, okay, for their agenda. You see, and it's a big scam. And see, what's happening is, you know, the American empire is a lot of paper. Okay? Like what you call a paper empire. Okay? And what these devils have done, you know, they set up a system to where they can trade paper for actual resources, man. You see? And what's happening, all right, these nations, they're all about now, you know, they've started, because America sanctions so many nations, okay, that you have a thing called a sanctioned economy, to where these nations have had to go back to bartering, you know, trading resources, okay, for resources. You see? And what these nations have seen was like, well, shit, we can exist outside the dollar. Okay? And America has been on a rampage, a warpath to try to, okay, get these nations back in line, okay, under the petrodollar, man. But these nations have pulled away, and they formed these different economic blocks, all right, and these different military alliances, man. Okay, and that's going to play a factor into this war as well, because it ain't that the elites need petrodollars. It was just a system of control. Okay, the petrodollar is all about control. You see, when they control nations, they control individuals, companies. Okay, so the petrodollar system gave the elites a lot of control over the earth, man, and they want to switch over the petro to digital. Okay, but in the mix of switching over, man, you got, you know, these nations making particular moves. You're like, shit, nigga, we just gonna fight about it, nigga. You see, they gonna fight about this. Okay. Now, how the elites are divided at the top, or, you know, what elites are back in this country and then back in that, you know, these countries and this system. Okay, we don't know, but we know the scripture say that Satan shall be divided, man. Okay, but let's play this a little more.
So the average investor, market fundamentals no longer apply to what's happening. So yes, in theory, the AR market could collapse. But because there's so few players within the AI market, it's controlled by 7 companies. The government has something called Operation Stargate, Project Stargate, and so Trump has promised hundreds of billions of dollars to invest in the AI infrastructure. So it's possible that this bubble keeps on going on and on. Okay, so this means that right now the American financial industry lacks the capacity to self-correct. And so if the market collapses, it's probably going to take the entire economy with it. And so that's a great problem facing the US financial industry. That's problem number one. Problem number two is over-financialization. And this goes back to the silver example, where when China announced that it was going to limit its exports of silver, and China controls about 60% of the silver market in the world, the price of silver went crazy. And the reason why is that in China, silver is used for manufacturing needs. So silver goes into AI, EV, batteries, all that. So China really needs silver. But in the United States, silver is used for speculation. So silver is really it's only paper silver. And a lot of these companies like JP Morgan, they're over leveraged 300 to 1. So every 1 ounce of silver that they have, they promise 300 on paper.
What type of scam is that? For every 1 ounce of silver that they have, they promise 300 ounces on paper. And that's the scheme. That's the banker's scheme, man. You see, they're able to, all right, just create wealth on paper that don't exist. Okay? And that's why when this thing collapsed, man, everybody's just going to be stuck holding paper, man. Over here in America, man, when this thing collapsed, everybody's just going to be stuck holding paper, man. Okay? Because it's just a big scheme, man. They be that you know, it's just a big scheme that this nigga is running, man. Okay? And is a collapse gonna hurt so much in America, man? And Esau just gonna leave everybody holding paper while he got the resources, man. That was the whole thing of this US dollar, was to extrapolate, all right, resources from the earth. Okay? From individuals, from nations. Okay? And this devil, he thinks that he wants to collapse this thing and leaving everybody holding the paper. But these nations, hey, they didn't start, we finna start getting resources. We finna start locking down resources. Okay? So let's play a little more.
And so it's a great bubble that's going to burst. You know, like what we saw in silver was almost like a small bank run. But it's not just silver; it's almost all these commodities where these commodities aren't used for manufacturing needs; they're used for speculation. And so the American financial industry is this great Ponzi scheme that's about to explode at any point. And the third great weakness of the U.S. economy, of course, is cryptocurrency. Where, you know, Bitcoin, it's all just speculation. It brings actually no benefit to society. So you have all these major weaknesses in the American economy. But because, first of all, you have a few oligarchs who control the resources. Second of all, the American government can print as much money as it wants. There's something called quantitative easing. And third of all, there's really no challenger to the US dollar. This bubble can sustain itself past 2026. But when it collapses, the entire society collapses. So you're basically looking at civil war.
So civil war in America.
Yes.
So in terms of gold and silver, you would assume that this rally will continue then, given that it's the paper gold and paper silver has been inflated so far beyond what actually exists in terms of the hard assets.
Look, the reality is that demand exceeds supply, right? So silver goes into AI, goes into EVs, batteries, because silver is the best metal conductor in the world, and there's no second. Copper is second, but it's far behind silver. So you need silver, and the world cannot produce enough silver, and this has been true for the past 5 years. And China and the United States are investing heavily into AI. So right now there's a major fight for access to silver, and this goes back again to Venezuela, where Latin America and South America actually are the world's greatest producers of silver. So whoever controls Latin America and South America basically has control over the AI future.
Well,
and see, it shows you that the devil doesn't even have. He said the earth doesn't produce enough silver for what they want to do. This is why it's getting tight. Like, it's really getting tight on these resources because he's trying to do too much. Okay, Esau is trying to do too much, man. And now, all right, it's getting tight with these resources, and these nations are going to go to the Lord going to have it to where these nations they're going to start off, okay, with the play of this new world order, but then it's going to go into survival mode, man. Okay, because there's a limited amount of resources, man. All right, all this oil consumption. Okay, the world, they talking about, well, we just put the 400 million barrels of oil. We released 400 billion barrels of oil. The earth uses 100 million. This industrial, okay, the industrial, okay, commercial, all right, society, okay, that Esau has created uses 100 million barrels a day. So you release 400 million, that's just 4 days. You see that this devil has set up systems to where he's really limited with the resources he has to try to pull this thing off, man. Okay, and this is another reason why he wants to kill off so many people. He wants to depopulate, man. Okay, and wars, starvation, okay, is a great way for this devil to get rid of a lot of people, man. Okay, and this devil just got a lot going on. You see, so let's go to a couple of precepts, man. You see, he limited on the oil, he's limited on the silver. See, now it's about these resources, man. That paper don't mean the goddamn, the dollar is irrelevant, man. These nations need actual resources, man. Okay, this little dollar game is played out. Okay, and the Lord making this nigga press the gas on this transition. Okay, so let's go here real quick. I always like to get this in Proverbs, discussing this nigga, man. All right, this is a book of Proverbs, chapter 5. I'm gonna get this in NLT. And say when that collapse hit in America, man, it's gonna hit. You know, this Proverbs 5 and 21. Yeah, it said, for the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes. An evil man is held captive by his own sins. They are ropes that catch him in hold. Go self-control. This nigga always doing too much. Okay, he has no self-control, man. He doesn't have any restraint. All right, and this man has believed his own hype so much that he thinks that he can do things that can't be done. He thinks he can pull off things that can't be done. Okay, that's how much the devil believes his own hype. Okay, it said he will die for lack of self-control. He will be lost because of his great foolishness, man. And this whole new world order is nothing but great foolishness, man. Okay. You see, and this man is held captive by his ambition to try to pull it off, man. Okay, and it's gonna have this man looking silly on every side. He's already looking silly militarily, man. Okay, he's already looking silly as hell militarily, man. Now he just finna look silly all the way around, man, because he doesn't even have the ability to pull this off, man. This is a dumb idea, but he's hard to keep going forward. Okay, this nigga's hard to keep going forward, man. All right, and what we're gonna see is a last ditch effort of this nigga to set up this new world order, man. Okay. So let's go here. So let's segue real quick, because now you have this with North Korea, which was going to say that more of these nations are going to start being more involved. All right, even if they don't be involved directly, you know, you're going to need to send weapons.
The Middle Eastern chessboard has just experienced.
Okay, because what we're going to start seeing first before these nations put boots on the ground is certain nations are going to send all right, military hardware and weaponry to the battlefield, man. Okay, because this is it benefits a nation a lot to be able to test their weaponry in a real war. Okay, against real defense systems, or test their defense systems against incoming missiles, man. So you're going to see nations begin, all right, to continue to weaponize Iran. See, the Lord is just feeding this fuel, the Lord is just putting fuel on the fire with this war, man. And Iran and North Korea have a unique relationship because there's no nations that have been sanctioned like them. So they've been doing deals for a while. Okay, they had ties for a while, man. Okay, which goes into the kings of the East. All right, but let's just play this real quick, dealing with North Korea, what they got going on as far as aid in Iran.
It's what can only be described as a seismic and terrifying shift. One that has left Donald Trump's war cabinet scrambling and the Pentagon trapped in a strategic quagmire they never saw coming. For weeks, the world has watched the horrifying spectacle of the U.S.-Israeli war machine trying to batter the Islamic Republic of Iran into submission, believing that superior technology and overwhelming firepower would pave the way to victory in the skies over Tehran and the strategic waters of the Persian Gulf. But behind the smoke and the headlines, a far more dangerous game was being played.
According to leading security expert Bruce Bechtold, Iran's deadly missile arsenal has deep roots in its long-standing partnership with North Korea.
Guess who has stepped in to support Iran? It's Kim Jong-un. According to local reports, the North Korean dictator has said that if Iran were to request military assistance, his country would be prepared to provide.
Base 44 super agents. Careful, there's no going back. No setup. Just say hello. Every tool you already use, plugged in a click. And away it goes.
Missiles against Israel.
Intelligence agencies in South Korea and military analysts across the globe are now sounding the alarm. North Korea has secretly entered the war. It is no longer just about the decades-old pipeline of missile components or shared technical know-how. According to a flurry of reports from South Korea's National Intelligence Service, and corroborated by whispers from Western intelligence, Pyongyang has used a covert network of oil tankers masquerading as commercial vessels to ship not just standard ballistic missiles, but a stockpile of genuine intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, to Iran, including the fearsome Hwasong-18 solid-fuel ICBMs. Rumors are now circulating that these deliveries, estimated by some analysts to be as many as 500 missiles, are the real, hidden reason why Tehran has so brazenly refused Trump's ultimatum to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran knows something the White House tried to hide. And that secret nuclear-armed North Korean technicians and military advisors have also landed in Tehran, tasked with advising their Iranian counterparts on how to respond with nuclear-tipped warheads if Israel dares to cross the nuclear threshold. The war in Iran is no longer a regional conflict. It is a global axis of resistance counteroffensive, and Kim Jong-un is now the wild card holding the detonator. The implications are nothing short of apocalyptic. What we are witnessing is not just an alliance of convenience, but the emergence of a hardened, battle-tested military bloc. Observers are now openly speculating that Kim Jong-un is using Iran's desperate fight against the US and Israel as a live fire testing ground for his most lethal toys. This is a nightmare scenario for the Pentagon. The same adversary that threatens to turn Seoul into a sea of fire is now offering up its latest intercontinental ballistic missiles, hypersonic glide vehicles, and even advanced drone technology to be field tested against the very same F-35s, B-52 bombers, and naval battle groups that could one day be used against Pyongyang. The reports emerging from the front lines in the past 72 hours are nothing short of shocking. While the Pentagon has been spinning a narrative of surgical strikes and degraded Iranian air defenses, the reality on the ground paints a picture of catastrophic failure for the U.S. Air Force. 7 American jets are now lying as wreckage across Iranian territory. And in a development that has terrified the generals in the Pentagon, a joint Iranian-North Korean air defense system, rumored to be a hybrid of Iran's indigenous Third of Khordad and North Korea's deadly KN-06, Pangé 5, is being credited with the sudden, devastating ability to swat US and Israeli fighter jets out of the sky. It appears the axis of resistance has just gotten a major upgrade. So, if you are tired of the mainstream media covering up...
So, yeah, man. All right, so there's rumors that North Korea has given Iran ICBMs, man. Okay? Intercontinental ballistic missiles, man. You see? So this is nothing but escalation, man. All right? There are rumors that Korean nuclear technicians are in Iran operating. Okay? So we're going to see these nations trickle in, okay, into this war, all right, in different capacities, man. Okay? They're not just going to start fighting, directly. No, they're going to start to trickle into this thing. They're going to come through the back door and trickle into this war, man. So this is escalating while the economic crisis is looming, okay? The energy crisis is looming, okay? The food shortages are going to loom, okay? And these things are just going to hit all at once, all right? All right, and let's go here because we'll end it here. We got one more video I want to get, okay? We got to get these small hats, all right? Belt to ass continues, okay? BTA, IDF, man, all right? You gotta hear something about that, man, okay? And we were telling y'all the IDF is trash too, man. Okay. Well, let's play a little bit of this. All right, what's happening? Because Hezbollah, has shocked the world. Okay. Well, which I say, man, in 2006, the small hats, the Hezbollah beat them in 2006. I think I played that video one time. It was a while back, man. But I knew the IDF was hype. All right, they were trash. Okay, so yeah, let's deal with what's going on the ground. All right, get a little boots on the ground commentary of what's happening. All right, with the IDF, man, because they started all this shit, but you don't hear nothing from these niggas, man. Okay, BB don't address nothing. Trump out here being a goddamn clown. Okay, looking crazy as hell. Him and Pete Hegseth and Rubio. All right, and BB started this shit. You don't hear from these niggas, man. Okay, because they got their hands full over here, man. So let's play this.
Opinion. I'm probably going to get in trouble for just doing journalism, but it really, in my professional opinion, if I may say so, Hezbollah right now, they're about that.
And so in Lebanon, China has made it. Think that has any heft behind it?
Well, I mean, the thing with Lebanon, and I see Lebanon, of course, as part of the Iranian war, right? Like it's an additional front in the same war. I've been working on this documentary, Jimmy, and I'm going to put it out tomorrow or something like that. So I'll send it to you, and I hope people watch it because the Iranians and Hezbollah, they're humiliating the Israelis right now. There's no question about it. They're humiliating the U.S. But I think what's been going on in the background, and this pertains to China and Russia, is that the Americans have been background quietly leaking out or attempting to take out China's oil Ukraine war. They, conveniently, 30% of China's gas, which comes from Qatar, is now is out the window and down the toilet. And Australia are having disruptions, quote unquote. So you've got two of the largest, the second and third largest LNG suppliers. And no one is paying attention to that. When it was the Iraq war, we were all talking about oil. I think it was very obvious back then that it was about oil. And right now, it's not just about oil; it's also about the LNG. You know, the Ukraine war, it just gave them that taste for blood. And I think that they're not just trying to take out Iran; they're trying to take out Russia and China at the same time. And China can't afford to be making toothless threats, because if they don't stand up for themselves the way Iran are doing right now, I really think that it's going to be checkmate. Not necessarily tomorrow, but ultimately they really need to stand up for themselves.
And so do you have any insight into how strong Hezbollah is and how much they can fight back against what's happening right now? I mean, they've said they want to turn southern Lebanon into Gaza, right? They're going to make it look the same way. What's your assessment?
Well, I'm probably going to get in trouble for just doing journalism, but it really, in my professional opinion, if I may say so, Hezbollah right now, they're the most effective guerrilla fighting force on the planet. There's no doubt about that. If you thought they were tough in 2006 when they kicked the Israelis out of South Lebanon in 33 days, or that they were tough 2 years ago, no, they're a completely different beast altogether right now. They are taking on the Israelis. I mean, I've been covering I've been building my own maps and covering the daily front actions every day, and the Israelis can barely get through. They've been toasting their tanks by the dozens. So whatever, the way we see Iran humiliating the US Air Force, for example, you have to just imagine that times 10 on the ground with Hezbollah. It's just that you don't hear about it in the news that much. But it's really unbelievable. And it's not just a question of them taking out tanks. They're just stopping the advance, period. And I was watching in French news, for example, they were going and interviewing Israeli soldiers. And that's, again, something you wouldn't hear in the English media. But they are, they're tapped out, completely tapped out. And the situation for them, they're completely exhausted, these Israeli soldiers. They thought that they killed Nasrallah. They thought that the pager attacks were, like a stroke of genius, and that they had crippled Hezbollah as an organization and as a fighting force. And they've not only stuck around, but they've come back 10 times stronger. So their ability is now expanded to them using Iranian-made surface-to-air missiles to take on helicopters and planes, and bomb indiscriminately from the sky, and there's nothing you can do about it. And in addition to that, they're using fiber optical drones. So instead of the Israelis being able to jam those with RFI or EMF generators, you can't jam fiber optical cables, right? So they're taking these things that they've seen in Ukraine and building on them, and they did it right under the Israelis' noses, which is, you got to remember, this is one of the most surveyed areas in the world, and they were still able to pull that off. So it is considerable from a purely objective point of view.
And so you think that
and if a brother could post that Proverbs 16:18. Yeah, man. So Hezbollah, has came back in a major way, and these small heads is getting their work. Okay, they can do nothing on the ground, and their only advantage is the Air Force, which they can only strike civilian targets, because Hezbollah deals with a complex, underground tunnel network as well. Okay, and they pop out, kick ass and go back underground, man. Okay, so there's really nothing those small heads can do with them, man. Okay, and it's just to show everybody these small heads throwing their weight around like they, some superpower militarily, man. These guys are lightweights, man. Okay, small work, you see. And then this is happening on the northern, which is southern Lebanon, which is north of the state of Israel. Okay, so Iran is embarrassing America's Air Force. Okay, and Hezbollah is giving the Israeli ground troops their work, man. Okay, so these small heads and these Americans, and you see the Lord God to where these nations ain't helping. Okay, because there's usually 20 to 30 nations that will be involved in helping, in this war. All right, but that's not happening, man. All right, the small hats and Americans have been isolated. Okay, and they both getting their teeth kicked in together. Okay, and it's only going to get worse, man. There's more nations, all right, begin to assist and aid Iran. And then, you know, when you get that time, when Russia gets directly involved, man, it only gets worse. Okay? Ain't no good news for you Edomites, man. Okay? You done had your kingdom, you know, you see? You done had your wealth, your influence, you know. You had a run, man, it's over. Okay? So the only thing left for this nigga do to come with this tack ass MOTB. All right. And that's it, man. Okay. So we have other prophecies, you know, that's like the civil unrest, persecution of the prophets. Okay. The global, all right, collapse. Okay, the MOTB. And once he do that, man, it just opened the door for the nukes and Yahweh shot, man. So let's end it here. This is Brother Yakal, Hopeful 144, Proverbs 16:18. Pride goeth before destruction. Okay, and the devil, all right, he's peaked out in his pride, man. You know, this is the most powerful thing, you know, that can be done to try to pull off a new world order that undermines the Most High. Okay, this is the devil in the peak of his pride. He's operating in the peak of his pride to try to pull this off, man. Okay, it said pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Okay, so we're living, all right, in the fall of Esau, man. Okay, the devil is being dismantled by prophecy. Okay, and he's gonna fight against it, all right, to try to establish a new world order, man. And he's just gonna completely fall, man. Okay, never to recover. So yeah, that's the point. I think we'll leave it there, you know. So Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you few sisters edified once again. I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakapadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutation, hopefully, shalom.